Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Pelican Sports Report. It's our baseball bracket show here live on 446 Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Leffler, joined by our esteemed panel here that we'll introduce here in just a minute. The LHSAA baseball playoff brackets were released sometime after 11 a.m. this morning. And so I'm sure baseball fans all around the state are eager to look at these brackets, look at these matchups, look at some of the top teams, top players, and everything on the road to Sulphur this spring. So we are going to do our best to bring you through each bracket this evening, and we'll be talking all things LHSAA baseball. Like I said, whatever those top matchups are happening in the first round, a lot of those top teams have buys. But there are some matchups that are taking place starting Thursday, and so we'll get into as many games as we can. We'll also hear from two coaches here in the Sinlaw area that have been with us here on 446 Sports all season long. Coach Greg Briggs, head coach of the Ash Trojans, and Jordan Marks, the head coach of the Menard Eagles, will join us. We've got Coach Briggs coming up in just a moment. Let's introduce our panel really quick. KP Miles is the voice of the Ash Trojans, former member of the Louisiana High School Officials Association. John Bell, a former letterman for both the West Monroe Rebels and the Ash Trojans. He's the color voice of the Trojans baseball team. And our special guest this evening is two-time Sports Writer of the Year from the Shreveport-Bossier Advocate and 318 Preps, none other than Roy Lang III. We will get right into the brackets. We'll start in Division I, and we'll start on the select side. And this is a good one for us to start off, KP, because this is a bracket that you and John have seen all season long at Don Boniel Field watching the Trojans go through the 2026 season.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of these teams. We're going to be very familiar with them. Got Captain Shreve coming in next Friday, the 24th. Going to play one game on Friday, two on Saturday. I know we haven't seen Captain Shreve this year, just watched some stuff online, but maybe Roy can give us some information on Captain Shreve.
Captain Shreve's had a decent year, 21-13. They're led by Andrew Sharp, who's the son of Todd Sharp, the head coach. He's been a factor at the plate. He's been a factor on the mound. Batting over 500 on the mound. He's been a stud for them. They're in a tough district, District 1 5A. It's not elite, but I think there's a lot of really good teams in there with Houghton and obviously Benton and Airline. So the Captain Shreve Gators gonna they'll give him a test. But I was talking to Todd Sharp today, and he had so much good stuff to say about Coach Briggs and especially their pitching staff. Obviously, he called it elite. And he said they had a little bad luck, 5 losses, I think, by 1 run. So, Captain Shreve and Todd Sharp know they're up against it.
And, John, we were kind of looking the last week of this season, right, in that top 10 area, some sliding and moving between Ash, Acadiana, Tioga, teams like that. Yes. Tioga, the 11 seed, will go on the road for their first round, and that'll be, on that same side there as Ash. But Tioga is a team that you got to see in the regular season, and one of those 4A teams playing up in Select D1, but looks like up and down that roster, they could be kind of a dark horse double-digit contender.
I tell you, the times that we were able to see Tioga live this year, the thing that impressed me overall, their defense was just phenomenal. Very disciplined, made the routine plays, made a few spectacular plays. Tioga it's a baseball school. It's a baseball part of the state. It's a big deal for them. Now they have their hands full in traveling to Jesuit. My oldest son that played for Ash back around 2015, 2016, they traveled to Jesuit as well. And Tioga's got a nice facility, and they've played in some nice facilities. This Jesuit setup is minor league baseball like. Division I college baseball like. Very, I don't want to say intimidating, but it's just a scene and an atmosphere that 16 and 17-year-old kids don't see a lot of. So as well coached as Tioga is and as strong as they are defensively, they'll have their hands full with Jesuit. But that's not to say that you can get a number one starter rattled and roll that thing into a 2-game win streak and move on.
Yeah, and KP, John mentioned Jesuit. You and I got to see them as part of the Red River Classic, and not surprisingly, if it's playoff time and it's select Division One, we're talking about 2-5A, but a lot of the states talking about the Catholic League. Jesuit, obviously, we saw what their starting pitching can do. Brother Martin, only 5 losses. They're the 1 seed. 3 of those losses were in the Catholic League to Jesuit and John Curtis. Us being from Rapides Parish, we're familiar with this playoff bracket, but you got to think kind of like what John thinks is that the Catholic League will be a fierce presence here because of the home games that they get to host.
Oh, absolutely. Jesuit, I was not aware of the tradition until Coach Briggs told me. But to look at Jesuit and see that they've, their record is really good this year. We played a competitive game with them. We threw 2 sophomores and played a competitive game with them. So, it's amazing when you look at Brother Martin and Jesuit and all those teams in New Orleans, how good a baseball there is down there in that area.
Yeah, and Roy, I mean, similarly, with 1-5A, those teams typically go their separate ways in the playoffs, as we know. But
Right.
just select Division One overall, trying to see, where those Shreveport Bossier teams fit into that against leagues like the Catholic League.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like you mentioned it. When it's playoff time, there's one group that you're going to look at first and foremost, and that's down there. And it's been that way for a long time. Bird threatened down there, but heck, it's been a decade maybe since they were a threat down there in the state championship game. So it's been a while, and but you know what? I mean, they're like Shreve and Ash, they're going to battle for North Louisiana to try and get a shot to give some people some problems down there. And I'm just interested. I just think the story with Ash and the atmosphere that's going to be as long as they're in the playoffs, I just think is something Todd Sharp mentioned as well. There's probably no describing it, and it's going to be emotional. It's going to be quite an atmosphere down there with everything that's happened. And you know what? Whichever North Louisiana team comes out of that, they're going to want to make some hay down south, because you have to. You got to make hay down south, or you're not getting to the state championship.
One coach that certainly knows about making hay down south is the head coach of the Ash Trojans, Coach Greg Briggs. And Coach Briggs, thankful for your time joining us tonight. KP and I were talking earlier today. We were kind of looking at how some of these teams finished the season. Not a whole lot of teams in 5A that are on more of a roll than the Ash Trojans right now, from what we can see.
We've been fortunate. On the field, the last few games, we've started swinging it a little better, and a few more timely hits. When we need them, and in the bottom of the lineup has really done a good job for us. But I think a lot of it, offensively, has to do with pitch selection. A lot. We're better in the in the plus counts, in the 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, 3-1, and we've talked about that a lot. And we were swinging it. We're really, really anxious coming into the year, because last year we really struggled with runners in scoring position. Runner at third with no outs and 1 out. We really struggled with getting that guy in and getting the key and the timely hits. And this year we've done a lot better. But I think coming into the year, we were so anxious and almost trying so hard to correct that from last year that we were getting ourselves out on bad pitches and a lot of plus counts. And right now, I think the guys are kind of understanding and buying into that, and we're doing a lot better job.
Yeah, as the offense has come around, that's certainly seemed to be a turning point as far as the win columns go. But what we've gotten to see all year watching your team, one thing in particular is building that starting pitching staff. You've had sophomores that have come on that are basically juniors now with the quality innings that they've got this year, to where now you have 3 or 4 starters that you're confident with. Is that something that's familiar to you, and how do you approach going in a 5A bracket with a solid staff like you've built?
We're really fortunate, and we do have some good arms. We really do. And I can remember going into the season, Obviously, everyone's aware of Jack and what Jack Lee can do, and he's been phenomenal for us. And Clayton Doyle's a senior that had a really good year last year, and he's been very, very consistent and very solid. And Trent Hennessy's come along as a senior and pitched in those early week games. But going into the scrimmages and the jamboree, we saw some young guys, and that we kind of just pushed them out there early on, knowing that at some point we're going to have to depend on them, and they're gonna develop with Hunter Lonsberry. We've got Cole McCann. We've got a lot of guys that can come in and help us and do a good job with that. And we kind of pushed them out there early, and they're doing a good job. And Austin Hoover, he's another big sophomore for us that's come in and thrown some strikes and pitched to contact, and they've only gotten better. And like you said, on paper they're sophomores, but right now they're really not with the experience, and they're going to have to play a big role for us to be successful.
We talked at the beginning of this season about just the wealth of senior leadership that you had, and what that presented on the team with people finding their place. But where is leadership? Where have you seen the kind of leadership that you like to see the most this season? What kind of guys, what guys in that locker room have just stood up and led this team?
I think as a whole, I think the senior group has really done a phenomenal job of leading, and it's more leading by example. And early in the year, everyone kind of finds out their roles, what's their role going to be. And in some years, some teams, some guys accept that, and they're okay with that. And then some guys aren't. This team has been one of those where, as the roles have developed through the course of the year, they've done a really good job of accepting it, buying into it. And, they know, whatever the game presents, whatever inning, whether it be the first inning or the last inning, that they're going to be ready to play. And I just think, our senior group as a whole, we have 10, 11 of those guys, and each one of them, you can't get them in every single game. And they continue to lead from the field, from the dugout, in the locker room, in the classroom, in the hallway. So I think that whole group has really done a good job. And there's been a select few juniors that have stepped up, and we really hadn't had that as an issue this year, and they've kind of taken ownership a few weeks ago, and that's been really good to see.
We were kind of talking, KP and John and I, just that, the amount of games that a lot of teams have played around the state. Just, I know around Cenla, we didn't have that many days with rain out. So y'all have been in a groove. What's a bye week like now for a team that has been rolling, but all of a sudden you got to step, off the white lines and figure out a way to develop here in between?
A few years ago was the first time I'd had a bye in the playoffs at this time of year. And you look at it on paper and you think, oh, well, this will be good. You give us time to get healthy and do that. But if you're playing well, and we're playing well, we're a lot better offensively, and we're playing with a little bit of confidence, and we're playing together. And, we've been through a lot these last week and a half, 2 weeks. And if I had the choice, I told our guys today, I would rather for us to continue playing. But what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to, kind of retain that focus. And, we've got a little bumps and bruises like everyone does this time of year. I would rather keep playing, to be honest with you right now. We've got an exhibition game set up, and we're going to do that. But it's not the same as when you go into a 5A state playoff series where winner moves on, the loser goes home. It's a different feel when you get into that. So I would rather be playing right now, going into next week, and just kind of keep going and getting some guys healthy. But, we're going to navigate it and manage it the best we can. And we'll be ready for, when Shreve comes our place.
You mentioned this team, having been through a lot, and obviously this program has gotten, a lot of attention statewide and even beyond that for reasons that you don't think that you'll ever, have to experience as a coach or a member of this program. But you talked about the team's response to it. What, just you watching those guys and how they've responded on and off the field, in a truly triumphant way. What have you learned from them? What's encouraged you just about seeing the way those young men have answered that call that life gives you sometimes.
Right. And, as negative as the situation obviously has been, the positive, I guess you could say positive, we have to draw positive out of every negative situation. And it's been very difficult, but is seeing these guys, how resilient they are as individuals and how resilient they've been as teammates. And sometimes I think younger people, kids, young men, sometimes they're more resilient, than we are as adults, because sometimes they really don't have anything to draw from, and they may not have experienced that, and they have each other to kind of lean on to. And that was such a shock to everybody's system, and terrible news when we heard that. But they've come together, and I think they have navigated this as individuals and as a group, and represented themselves in our school and community as best that they can. And I think baseball has been kind of a little bit of an escape for that. But they do still realize that Colin is still a part of us, and we're don't want to be cliche-ish, or but they're playing for him, and he's always on our mind. And I've really learned a lot and grown from watching these guys come together and how they represent themselves, our school and community. And obviously, hopefully Colin would be proud of that.
Yeah.
You mind if I ask Coach a question about that real quick?
Yes. Yeah. Please do.
Coach Roy Lang here, and it just super. I just find this very interesting when you're put in the position. Everybody talks about coach wins and losses, right? Well, the best job you guys do are psychiatrists, counselors, mothers, fathers, all that stuff, and a lot of people don't realize that. When did you realize that after all this happened, that this team was going to respond on the field in a positive way and use that instead of it being a distraction and, oh my gosh, this season's done? At what point did you realize they were going to take it and be like, yes, we are playing for him and we're going to play well?
That's a really good question, because in my career, I haven't really experienced something this tragic, right in the midst of the season. So I wasn't sure. And I'm not sure if I can really answer that. It's just when we went out the first couple of innings in the first game against Washita, I don't think anyone was ready to play the game of baseball at Alexandria Senior High. The mindset, these guys had tears in their eyes as they're going up to bat. They all played this walk-up song. So, that's a really, really good question, but it's a tough question. But watching these guys, I think after that second, that third, that fourth inning of that Washita game, that they realized that, Colin would want us to go play. He wouldn't want us to be all sad. He was always smiling and happy, and he was the guy that always was bringing everyone up and being a great teammate. So probably around that, and I think after we got those two games kind of under our belt a little bit, I think we went to the practice the next day and told our coaches that, they finally got to see those guys kind of laughing and joking and being silly a little bit. And instead of getting mad as a coach and trying to get them to refocus and all that, we kind of embraced it, and I just kind of let them be. And I think it's, that they've got a little bit different energy, and I think it's given those guys a little bit more appreciation, not only for the game of baseball, but for life in general.
Just the fact that we don't, we can go through these tough situations, together. We don't have to go through things alone. We usually have if we're lucky enough to have a tribe or a team to lean on. That's so important times like these. Trojans will get a bye week in round one, and they will get a home playoff series in round two. And Coach Greg Briggs, we thank you so much for your time helping us talk about this Trojan season, and look forward to the playoffs and just the amazing job that your team has shown the community here in these past couple weeks.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate it, and the outpouring of support from across the state, and even states, surrounding states, has really been remarkable. And it's been a good thing to see how the baseball community has really come together, and even some football coaches and basketball coaches has texted and called, and it's a brotherhood, and it's special to see, and I think it's kind of brought everyone together in a tragic situation. But we appreciate the kind words, and thanks for all you guys do for baseball across the state of Louisiana, and particularly in Cenla.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Coach.
Thank you so much, Coach Briggs. Yeah, we'll see you on the field next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
All right, thanks to Coach Briggs. Yeah, just a very what turned into what started as an exciting season for the Trojans turned into a very unique one, but it's certainly been a special one that KP and John and I have had to have a small part of participating in.
And Marshall, I'll tell you, we experienced that up here last year. I don't know if you guys remember, but Calvary softball lost Elena Franks literally the day before the first practice in a car accident. And I was amazed at what those girls did. Listen, they're super talented. They probably got the best roster in the state, but everywhere they went, everywhere they played, the other team wanted to do something for them. So they were literally reminded of it pregame everywhere. When they went to state, same thing. And those girls ended up winning the state championship. And, they were really talented, but you had to give them credit because they could not escape what had happened to their teammate.
Yeah, just a game and more than a game all at once. It seems what sports can do.
And Roy, we've seen that as well. We've seen that as well. Neville last week when Ash went to Neville, text Coach Briggs. They bought dinner for the kids. They actually took a moment of silence for Colin, which was very, very admirable of them. Like I said, it's just been a great outpouring of. I've gotten texts and calls from Tioga parents, Buckeye parents, Pineville parents asking what they can do to help. It's just been a great outpouring from the community.
And I'm glad Coach said sports. I preach this to my wife, when we're talking about our son, wins and losses, this and that. I'm, working hard, work ethic. And I'm like, this isn't about sports. This isn't about him being Wayne Gretzky. The stuff you learn in sports, how to deal with people, how to deal with adversity, tragedy, that is stuff you are going to take with you your entire life, no matter what business you're in, no matter if you're still an athlete. Sports is life, and it teaches these kids how to deal with stuff that if you weren't in sports, you probably wouldn't deal with it like this. So it's just, sports is an amazing thing. And Coach said that, he said, hey, they're using this as a life lesson.
John's been able to do that with his job. He manages people at work, and I know sometimes he goes back to some of that sports stuff you learned, JB.
Oh, it's incredibly valuable. The three sports to me that will grow you as a person is football, baseball, and golf. Golf has a lot of you police yourself. It's integrity. There's some decorum. There's the way that you behave. Baseball is going to teach you to really get into the head and think a lot about so many things that are going on in baseball. And football is dadgummit, we're a team and we're going to do this together, and we fight for our brothers and the guy next to us. And all of that is so applicable, like Roy talked about, in whatever you do for a living, whether you are a professional athlete or an accountant or whatever you do. Sports will give you life lessons to take you through that.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Got to choose your hard. Yeah. Either way is hard, but choose your hard. Speaking of hard, a really hard playoff bracket will be the non-select Division I bracket. And John, we'll stay with you here because, being a veteran of 2-5A, both through Ash and West Monroe, and seeing a lot of the top, seeds in that bracket this season. I know that West Monroe certainly looked impressive in their series that we saw in 2-5A, but what have been your overall thoughts about Division I non-select here at the end of the day?
I tell you, speaking of that series you talk about with that we did with Ash and West Monroe, as West Monroe rolled into town, it was, man, I hope we can be competitive. And I think West Monroe beat them 2 games, both of them 1-run games, like 1-0 and 2-1, something like that, if I recall right. And just fabulous. And then you see West Monroe go on to do the things they do. Ash is like, hey, we were right there with them. We're just as good as they are. We can compete and do the things that they do as well. But going over this bracket, I mean, my goodness, there is between the history at Barb and West Monroe and Airline. Airline was a strong program when I played at West Monroe back in the '80s, and they still are. What Barb has done is just, the research I was doing on them today. It's staggering that they've
Played more games than any team, I believe.
that 33-1. 33-1, and lost the second game. The one loss was the second game of the year back on February 12th to a school called the Bennett School, which is the number one team in the state of Texas, undefeated. So just, they're incredible. They got the winner of the Mandeville Airline game is who Barb will get, but that, they were Louisiana state champions in 98, 2000, 01, 06, 08, 12, 14, 15, 16, 19, 21, and 23. So, I mean, this is first round buys is kind of where they live. They also beat another team out of Brenham, Texas, who was like the number 3 team in the Waco area of Texas. Just impressive. Right, currently are ranked number 5 nationally for high school baseball teams. Nationally, number 5. So, hey, the program that they've got there, and this is high school. You're rolling that roster over every year. So the coaching and the support, head coach Glenn, I'm going to go with Sacchini. I'm not sure if that's right, but just incredible what they've done at Barb. West Monroe as well at 24-8. Got swept games 2, 3, and 4 of the year. Now they've only lost 8 all year, and they lost game 2, 3, and 4 when they got swept by Catholic. So, and they lost a couple of games to a team in Brandon, Mississippi. Now that is the one thing that West Monroe is not scared to do. The football team has taken that on since the 90s of we are not getting any better beating up on Wassman and Carroll and Bastrop and stuff like that, and started traveling to Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi. And I see a lot of teams in this bracket that have played a lot of teams from Mississippi and from Texas. So just getting your team ready and prepared for this moment. All the 30-something games they've played thus far is to prepare you for this coming weekend and the weekends that hopefully get them to whoever that is to Sulphur.
Yeah, and Roy, you mentioned 1-5A and 1-4A too. They're well represented in this bracket. We talked about Airline. That's a really good matchup with Mandeville in the first round, maybe one of the best first round matchups. Mandeville won 12 of their last 14 and had an extremely difficult schedule. But between Airline, Houghton, Northwood, and Benton, all teams that you've covered and recognized some players there throughout this spring. But that'll be a great bracket for the Shreveport-Bossier area.
No, it really is. As I mentioned, 1-5A, a good district, really good district. Is it elite? I think we'll see how that pans out in the postseason. But they just sort of beat each other up. Benton, I think, is the class of Shreveport-Bossier baseball. They lost in the semis to Live Oak last year. They've won a championship recently. They're always contending. Dane Peavy has those guys playing really well. Cole Snell, I think a lot of people around the state know how good he is. Hayden Millen, batting almost 500. One of my favorite stats about him, 25 steals on 26 attempts. I want to ask him what happened on the 26th attempt, but some pretty cool notes about these teams. You mentioned Barb. Well, I did a story earlier this season on Glenn Maynard getting his 700th win. I believe he's 3rd active in the state, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. And he goes, yeah, the guy at Barb's got over 1,000. So don't crown me today because his number is unreachable. And then Toby Todd, the head coach at Airline, surpassed 500 victories this year. And like I said, little resurgence there out of Airline. You know, you look at all these 1-5-8 teams, 20-12 was Airline's record. It's like almost the same exact record for Houghton, Shreve, Northwood, who is 1-4A. Very, very similar. They beat each other up, except for Benton, a little better than everybody else. But one thing about Northwood, they're a 4A team that gets into this bracket. This will be the last year that they're in this bracket. They changed the language in the LHSAA rules, but Northwood was 10-14 a couple weeks ago. They are 20-14 after winning their last 10 games. They claimed the last spot in the bracket by playing their last 10 games, 4 against Class B team, 4 against Class A team, and 1 against a Class C team. So Austin Alexander deserves Coach of the Year for scheduling and working that Excel sheet, and he knew how they were going to get to that last spot, and by golly, did they do it.
Yeah, really nice job there by the Falcons to slip in a great baseball program. KP, Roy talked about Barb's accolades. John talked about Barb's accolades. Mandeville won 12 of their last 14. Airline had a similar finish. Hahnville is on an 18-game win streak and have won 24 of 25. New Iberia and Ruston are both battle-tested. They'll play this weekend in the first round, but they're both in really tough districts in Lafayette and Monroe, respectively. Zachary, the 4 seed, wrapped up with Central BR and Catholic, and Walker has won 10 of 12. So as good as Barb is, there's a lot of challenges up at the top of this bracket. Do you think that Barb just has to be the favorite just because of how impressive they've been this year?
I mean, I don't know how they're not the favorite, but yeah, when you look at some of the other, I mean, we've seen Ruston. Ruston's pretty good this year. You know, you've seen Central of Baton Rouge. They're pretty good as well. I mean, but you've played 33 games. You've won 31 in a row. And this is 31 in a row. And I'm looking at this thing right now. This is not 31 in a row against, you know, St. Mary's School of the Blind. I mean, this is 31 in a row against the best of the best around the state. So, I mean, it's Barb's. I went to Barb a couple years ago for a game to umpire, and I'm stretching, loosening up, and I'm talking to the Barb coach, and I look out there, and I was like, that's a pretty good Titantron out there. He goes, yeah, that's the one they have at LSU. So they have the same video scoreboard at Barb they have at LSU.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And so then he tells me about a parent who in the 6th grade came to him and said, we're gonna turf the field, and the coach is like, we're not even sure your 6th grader is going to be on the team. Parents like, that's okay. I'm good. So it's just it's a different world. And, you know, as good as that bracket is, you know, I think Central of Baton Rouge is going to give them a run. And obviously down here at the bottom of this bracket, there's some really good teams as well. I'm looking down here, Sam Houston, same thing. Sam Houston and Barb can't stand each other. It's like West Monroe and Ruston. They just don't like each other. So should be a heck of a bracket.
And the thing is, you know, even more impressive about this Barb run is baseball. Like, they're really good. Obviously, they got great facilities, a great coach, great players, but it's baseball. If you somehow catch game 1 in a 3-game series, I mean, you know, the other team puckers up a little bit, and it's even more impressive that they're consistently getting this far, because baseball, I think, of all the sports, baseball is the one where sort of craziness can happen. You get a hot arm one day, you catch a game, and then you somehow win one of the last 2. I mean, that's why this is impressive, and that's why I think going into these every year, you're like, well, it is baseball. Any one of these teams could pull an upset if whatever, but it just doesn't happen a lot against Barb.
And that's the thing, you know, the run that Barb's been on lately, and like KP talked about, the 31 in a row, when Barb comes to your place or you go to Barb, it's like the Yankees or the Dodgers. They're getting up for that. They're not, the Barb's opponents aren't sleeping on Barb.
Right.
So we're gonna shock the world. We're gonna take down Barb, and then 31 in a row, it doesn't happen. You know, you're talking about the Benton. I was looking at the Benton schedule today. 28-5. Okay. Now they've lost 2 of their last 3 games.
Right.
Okay. But they're 28-5 They scored 10 runs or more 17 times.
Yeah.
So they're not their pitcher going out and having a rough inning. It's probably not going to affect them. Ash leans on that pitching staff to keep the runs low. The game's going to be close, and I don't know that much about Benton's pitching staff, but it when you're scoring 10 or more in 70% of your games, your pitching staff is not that it's not that big a deal.
And their pitching staff is good. And the thing about Benton is they're not Barb. Their history shows they haven't done what they've done, but they've done a lot. And if they somehow get a piece of Barb, they're not going in there, oh my gosh, how are we going to beat Barb type of thing.
Yeah, they're not scared at all. Right.
Yeah. So they have had enough success to be confident going into whoever they play. So, like I said, of all the teams up here in this classification, Benton is the one that can probably make the most noise.
Cool.
Yeah, I did go ahead, John.
The Sam Houston thing as well. I was looking into them a little bit. 26-8, right across town from Barb. So they've got 8 losses. 3 of those losses came to Barb, and one of them came to, guess who? The Bennett School out of Houston. So they're not scared to reach out and take a hard game as well. One of the things I was thinking about a while ago when Coach Briggs was on, in all the games that we did of Ash's this year, I don't know if he put the same lineup out there twice. He is more willing to shuffle that lineup as much as I've seen anybody and still have the success that he's had, which says a lot about his confidence in the players. And it says a lot that he's not dealing with a bunch of babies that are going to have an issue with, I played second the other day and now I'm on third and now I'm in right field. So that I attribute a lot to him to be able to move that lineup around, because he had some speedy guys that were also responsible for a lot of RBIs, and they were in the top of the lineup. And then somebody else hitting sixth caught fire, and he'd move them up to second. 4 games later, they're back down to fifth. And then it just the very top and the very bottom of his lineup didn't change much at all. But 3 through 7 was just it was a shuffle every game of how that was going to lay out, and it was fun to see that everybody kind of got a shot at being that number 3 or hitting cleanup for Ash.
Yeah, did get to see Benton come to Cenla. They threw a no hitter here a couple weeks ago. So no surprise, non-select Division I. That'll be a brawl. We will we're going to skip over Division II briefly, go over to Division III. We'll start with the select side. And Roy, I know with Calvary Baptist Cavaliers are a mainstay there, but let's start with the Menard Eagles, because we've got the head coach of Holy Savior Menard with us, Jordan Marks. And Coach Marks, Eagles finished this regular season on an 8-game win streak and just got you that 12 seed, got you that first round bye. The things that you talked about at the beginning of the season that you thought might have to be present for y'all to have a winning season and get a first round bye, did that bear itself out the last 8 games?
Finally, it took a little while for us to get going. But the things that make us good is situational hitting. And I thought the last 4 weeks, we did a really good job of manufacturing runs when guys got in scoring position. Our hitters, take selfless at bats, and we call them team at bats, and move runners over and get runners in when we needed to. And our pitching staff hasn't feared it all year. I mean, those guys have been good since game 1, and finally the last 3 or 4 weeks, our hitters kind of stepped up and finally got their backs, as we call it. So, yeah, I mean, this is I heard y'all. I come in a little late, but I heard you talking about Division I non-select, and that division is loaded. But this Division III select is no joke at all either. The top 15 teams in this division can win state, in my opinion. But yeah, what led to success for us was moving runners over, selfless at bats, team at bats, and we started off kind of striking out a lot. And this team was a year older from last year, but they're still 1 year starters, so to speak, and now they're 2 year starters. So following a good run that we had a couple of years ago, these guys know how to win, and they proved it the last 3 weeks. So.
Settled into some reliable starting pitchers with Procell and Shelton, Sipowicz, and you've got other guys, Tishner, other guys that can step in there and throw. What goes into planning for a 3-game series with a 2A roster?
It's it's not easy, and we prepared ourselves for these type things. Week 1 we had a 3-game set against Oak Grove. Week 2 we had a 3-game set against Ash right here in town. So this is nothing new to us. We've been doing it. This is my 8th year here, and we've been playing 3-game sets since I've been here. There was never a 1 game since I started coaching. So this is something that is normal for us, and we're prepared for it. So.
Has it been typical? You mentioned 8 years here. Has that been kind of typical where the bats come around, later on in the season and seemingly y'all have just been focusing on the same things that you always are during different points in the year?
Well, it was kind of the way that I was coaching high school. My head coach, Jeff Adams, and assistant coach, Terry Matthews, we always wanted to be rolling towards district and towards the end of the season and really not get hot too fast. I'm not saying we try not to get hot early, because that's not the case, because you got to try to win as many games as you can to try to keep up with this division. But no, we like to be rolling come district time and playing our best baseball come district time. And that's kind of how I coach. We don't put everything in week 1. We kind of gradually go as the season goes on and putting different things in. And, we had to kind of coach on the fly, whatever's happening that week, whether our hitters are not having good approaches, or our pitchers are not throwing as many strikes as we are. And you kind of just coach on the fly. But, typically the teams that I've coached come district time, we're as hot as we can be. So.
Yeah. So easy for us to say getting hot at the right time, but that seems to be what you've done. But next, that second round, you get a team that has been just as hot, if not hotter, in Catholic New Iberia. So for a team that has gotten hot at the right time, what do you do to stay hot at the most important time?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still implementing things in practice, and next week we have 3 or 4 different things that we're going to put in to try to prepare for these guys, and they're defending Division III state champs, and so we're not taking them lightly. However, I like our draw. We've played St. Louis Catholic. They've been 5 for 2 weeks, and they just got in our division last year. So we played a 3-game set week 1 with these guys since I've been here for the past 8 years. And so, it's I've never played Catholic New Iberia. I heard a lot of good things about the program. And so it's kind of nice to play somebody different. And we're looking forward to it. And we're going to throw a little exhibition series in later this week to kind of, keep the bats hot and keep the arms fresh. And then next week we're going to treat it, just like a playoff atmosphere type practice, and we're gonna put them in some tight situations, some situations where they got to overcome some adversity and try to make it realistic as possible. So,
all right. Speaking of adversity, we'll get you out of here on a question, but it's going to be from KP. So buckle up.
Well, Coach, you and I talked whenever we had the series with y'all, and you talk about hard games. First of all, as an Ash guy, I want to say thank you, because y'all's 8-game winning streak has helped us get this 8 seed. I think our winning streak of 7 games might have assisted y'all as well.
Yep, no doubt.
Tell me the mindset of you as a coach, knowing that, and you said this when we spoke, more than likely Ash is going to beat us 3 times. But what that prepared you for right now at this point in your season, and how well you feel like those 3 games are going to help you in the long run.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, that was week 2. It was early in the season, and we caught the lead late in one of the games, and then end up losing it late and dropping the series and getting swept. But you look at last year's series against Ash compared to this year's series against Ash, with pretty much the same team on both sides, right? And I thought it was a much better series. I would have liked to squeeze one out of there, but these guys have seen all that. They've seen some of the top arms in the state with Ash's 1-2 punch what they got, and they're however many seniors they have over there, their lineup is stacked as anybody's. And so our pitchers have faced adversity going through that lineup 3 different times, in 3 different games. And so, look, I think it prepares us. I'm, never the one to shy away from competition, and I like crosstown rivalries, especially, with a competitive club like Ash. I think it just helps us. Our guys have seen what it means to be in the trenches and fight for 3 games against a crosstown rivalry and a really, really good ball club who has a shot to go late in, Division I select. And I don't know. I just think we're prepared for it. I think we're ready for it. I like being the underdog. I know we're 12 going to 5 next week, but we're kind of coaching it and we're kind of looking at it like we don't have anything to lose. And to me, sometimes that's some of the dangerous teams.
Amen.
Yeah, the 12-5 matchup, we love that in basketball. That's a good one in March Madness. So we'll take that. Eagles on a roll, like we said, finishing the regular season with 8 straight wins. D3 Select, always one of the best playoff brackets, but Menard will kick it off in the regional round next week against Catholic New Iberia. So, Coach Marks, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us talking Eagles baseball. We'll catch up with you once the regional round gets here.
Appreciate you having me, guys. Go Eagles.
Thanks, Coach.
Good luck, Coach.
Yeah, so like I said, the Eagles on a run there to get that 12th seed, but Roy, kind of going back to the top of this district, year in and year out, as head coaches come and go, Calvary continues to bring really top-tier baseball talent out of their dugout.
No doubt. They drew the 3 seed this year, 21-13. They played a pretty tough schedule as well. They swept Houghton. They had another couple. They beat North DeSoto, defending state champion in Division II. So Bo Waddell, just sort of like Coach was talking about there, you play a lot of these games, not necessarily just to win that day, but you play a lot of these games to win at this time of the year, which is the most important, and prepare these guys. If you play the best talent out there, Class 5A, 4A, whatever, when you're a 2A squad, not really anything's going to scare you. And there are so many good teams in this bracket. But Calvary, you mentioned there's been a lot of turnover with head coaches lately. Bo Waddell's looking to get this back on track. They lost in the quarters to ULAB last year. They're going to obviously have the bye this year as the 3 seed and play the winner of Fisher and Bunkie. But Calvary is certainly a team to watch. The record isn't gaudy, but they've played and beaten some good teams.
Yeah, and looking at, you mentioned U-High, the 1 seed, a really impressive schedule for them and some really impressive wins. Kind of some losses, just kind of look some of those slip-up games. But, John, I guess that's just baseball, that a team that may not make the playoffs will come up and get a 1 seed in the middle of the regular season.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You got, somebody has a swinging bunt, catcher comes out and grabs it, throws it up the right field line. Before you know it, what are we doing? We're leaking oil. We're imploding. How do we stop it? And it's, you make a substitution on a guy at second base. Well, you can guarantee the first ball is going to get hit to the second baseman. You're going to get tested immediately. So, yeah, it doesn't take much for the snowball to get going, especially when you're 16 or 17, mom's in the stands, the girlfriend's watching. So the nerves become high.
Yeah. Yeah. And Newman, the 2nd seed, they've played, a 4A, 5A type schedule. Lafayette Christian's in there at the 6th seed. Aiden Welch, I think, has had 2 straight no-hitters as a starting pitcher on the mound. Bunkie in there as a 19 seed. I probably wouldn't want to play them. They have a really talented starting lineup. And, of course, Rose Pond there at the 4 seed. They've been on a roll later, and they've got some collegiate talent. So public and private, either way, select Division III will be a good one. Let's loop back to Division II, and we'll go back to the non-select side. Bruley, the number 1 seed, they're on a 20-game win streak. But, beyond there, right there at the 2 seed is North DeSoto, Roy, and what an impressive baseball program that we got to watch the defending champion Griffins with the 2 seed, a team that we've gotten to see here in Sinlaw this year.
Yeah, and Bo Odom, the head coach when they won the state championship last year, longtime head coach, is retired. Jared Jennings takes over this program, and they haven't skipped a beat. And, you can't talk about North DeSoto baseball, let alone North DeSoto athletics, without talking about Luke Delafield. This is his swan song. It seems like he has been at North DeSoto for 10 years. He started football as a freshman, played all 4 years at quarterback. Just a winner. The kid wins, and he was huge part of why they won last year. He got rocked in game 2 of the state championship series and then came back and had a crucial hit in game 3. Instead of getting dejected, hey, I blew a chance to win the state championship. He does what every good athlete does and came right back the next day and turned it around. So, I think some of our readers are like, man, you're writing about Luke Delafield again. But he's going to go down as one of the greatest athletes to come out of here, just overall, not just talent, because, yeah, he does have a lot of talent. He's going to Northwestern State to play football, but that's the desire to win, the leadership skills. It's just all there for Luke Delafield. And obviously, he's going to be a big reason if they make a run. It's going to be a lot's going to have to do with him.
Yeah, and KP, you got to see him pitch early this year, and kind of similar to Ash, where a lot of their football players are making it happen on the baseball diamond as well.
Yeah, Delafield was impressive. I've always been impressed with the whole North DeSoto program. Got to see them come here, and it was a great game. Just a top-notch program all the way around, and it's going to be difficult for anybody to beat Bruisley, but I mean, if anybody can do it, I think it's I think it's North DeSoto. Delafield, from what I've talked to and heard, is a better young man and a better kid than he is an athlete and a player, and that's rare. We get a lot of them these days that have all the attitude and the social media and all that. And from talking to people up there, Delafield's just as good a kid as he is an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, and that 1-2 matchup would be great. Bruley's got they've got some college signees in their infield. They've got a pitcher catcher battery, actually brothers, Isaiah and Trey Daly, and like I said, they're on a 20-game win streak. So we'll see if the Griffins can defend there. And they've got some other good teams. A lot of dark horses in those single-digit seeds. So Division II non-select will be very exciting as we see kind of how those single-digit seeds bear themselves out. Looking at non-select Division II, select Division II. This is a bracket that's topped by Vanderbilt Catholic, who lost their final 2 games to Sam Houston and North Shore and got swept by Catholic Baton Rouge. But they're at the 1 seed. Buckeyes, a Sinlaw team in the 8 seed. And John, we've seen kind of what a team like Buckeye can do, a 3A school that's playing up in Division II, but a scrappy team like that just has good ball players all up and down the lineup, and that has infielders and outfielders and whoever that can pitch. Those kind of teams can make playoff runs. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. And the thing about Buckeye is in almost all of their athletics, they take it very seriously. It's a big deal at Buckeye. Now they might not field 25 players on the baseball team like some of these other schools do, but they're going to run 13 or 14 out there, and you're going to get all you can get from all 13 or 14 of them. It's just a way of life there at Buckeye. Sports is a big deal. They get a lot of support from that part of the country as well to advance. The softball program obviously has been the leader in the news for Buckeye for a while, but the baseball team, the football team's coming along. There's more and more people moving into that Buckeye area their enrollment just gets bigger and bigger every year. So there's big things coming from Buckeye, and it could start this year.
Roy, the Flyers of Loyola Prep, they started the season 6-0, finished 5-1, and Horton, their pitcher, that's another one of those guys that was a leader on the gridiron and has been one of their top pitchers this season as well.
He has, and he's sort of, when he's not pitching, he's all over the place, catcher, first base, whatever, and he is a lead by example guy. Not just on the gridiron, but on the baseball field. And I'll tell you one thing, young coach Morgan Bryan, who's a Flyers alum and really a Flyers legend, you look in the Loyola record book and he holds a lot of those offensive records. And he's got something building right there. 19-13, as you mentioned, sort of streaky at the beginning, streaky at the end. But Loyola's, they want to improve on last year's finish. They got ousted in the quarterfinals to Hannon, I believe, Archbishop Hanna, and but that senior leadership and guys like Hayden Horton are going to be crucial to see if they can get one more round to the semis and see what happens. Yeah, and
KP, looking at some of those top seeds, Turlings, they finished off their regular season pretty much with a tournament over in Texas at the 3 seed. We mentioned Vanderbilt Catholic. The top seed, and also St. Charles Catholic, who's won football. Could St. Charles maybe pull the football baseball double like Sterlington did last year?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you see these teams again. A lot of these kids play both sports. You see them jump in there, and some of our best leaders on our Ash baseball team played football. Grayson Thibodeau, Clayton Doyle. It's just a different mindset, I think, when you're in the football world. So yeah, you could definitely see a double up there in that situation.
Take a look at non-select Division III before we move down to the smaller classification schools. This is a bracket that Sterlington won last year, and they've been, just obviously in all sports, been right back to where you're used to seeing them year in and year out. But Roy, I'm sure that you get to, kind of get a little bit of the trimmer that the Sterlington Panther baseball program puts out with Downs. He's throwing in the mid-90s. That's not to mention Miller Sheets, who's also on that staff. Brady Belonger has been hitting the ball well. And, I mean, just as loaded as all their athletic programs are, their baseball team seems to be poised for another postseason run.
Yeah, no doubt. If we did one of these shows for just about any sport, once we get down to this classification in this bracket, you're going to be talking about Sterlington. Unbelievable facilities over there. Their programs are great. And, they're some of the Shreveport coaches that have to play Sterlington in their classifications won't say it, but man, if you want to be an athletic program, Sterlington's got to be one of the ones that you want to be like. So no surprise that they're going to make some noise.
Yeah, and John, I'll ask you just kind of from a player's perspective that when you get into Division III, you see these 3-game series, but like we asked Coach Marks, you've got 2A roster. So a lot of teams are kind of figuring it out. They may not necessarily play 3 games in 2 days at any point during the regular season. But, from that postseason experience, what's it like to know that you're going into, some of these 2A schools, they're going into 3-game series this weekend?
Well, the biggest thing that a lot of these, especially the smaller schools, a lot of the smaller schools are usually dealing with a strong shortstop, 1, possibly 2 strong pitchers, maybe an outfielder, and they're trying to pump these guys up to get ready to win game 1, because when you lose game 1 in a 3-game set, the collar gets real tight around the neck. So it's, and we had talked about this earlier with what Ash has got coming up in the pitching staff that they got. Do you go with Jack Lee in game 1? Do you save him for 2 just in case? And more times than not, you're going to come with the big guns in game 1, and it allows you to make some different decisions in game 2 when there's a game 3 there. So sometimes you've got some variance when you get into these size schools, and that you can ride a horse that can get you to, especially on the softball side, but on this baseball side, it takes a little bit more of the roster to get through it. So there's going to be some upsets in this style of bracket.
You go to game one, and then if you have to go to a game three, it's Johnny Hull staffing it, and anything can happen.
That's right.
That's why game one is just so important. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's not like we're saying, this is something out of the blue. But I don't think it's impossible to underplay how important or overplay how important game one is in these series, especially for these smaller schools that they're going to throw anybody that can throw at some point.
Correct. Yep.
Erath, the 5 seed, gets a win over Rose Pine to wrap up tomorrow. They were the runner-up last year, or yesterday. The runner-up last year, they had a win yesterday over Rose Pine. Doyle, the 3 seed, that's probably the biggest school in the state that doesn't play football, but they'll be a contender right there. Kinder as well. They had a matchup against Tioga last night. They'll settle into the 5 seed. And then Westlake, the 2 seed, who had some really big regular season wins, kind of playing up in division. So Division III non-select, usually one of my favorite, football, basketball, or baseball. And I think that, Erath and Sterlington are the same kind of teams that could make runs back there. But it'll be interesting to see how those 3-game series work themselves out for some of these schools that'll be, going into that challenge. Moving into the divisions that won't have 3-game series, that'll just be one and done. We'll start with Division IV non-select. And Roy, I know that Logansport, typically just like football, Logansport double-digit seed, but they do have some talent that could make them, a contender in this bracket.
Yeah, and you look at their record, sub 500, but we've talked about how a lot of these teams schedule. So when you get down to these teams, you can't always judge a book by its cover in terms of record. But Logansport, Bartley Henry's got some momentum down there. They made it to the second round last year, lost to Vinton. Keaton Kaysen. I mean, this is just such a theme tonight, talking about guys that are stars in football in leading their baseball team. Keaton Kaysen, quarterback for the Tigers in the fall. Batting, in the mid 400s, hits for power, fast. He's just an all around guy. Like, we were talking about earlier, you're going to have that good shortstop. You're going to have 1 or 2 good pitchers and maybe one other guy. Well, this is the guy. And, he's going to be a big force for Logansport as they face Lakeview, the number 21 seed.
Yeah, and we also saw KP Oakdale. They get a win actually over Pineville last night. A really, really impressive team. The Oakdale Warriors coming up with the 2 seed in Division IV non-select, and set up to maybe make a little noise down there in Allen Parish.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Marks actually today about Oakdale, and he wasn't surprised at all. He played them. They've got a guy, and they needed to get a win, and so they played him last night. And they can make some noise, especially in these series with one game. Excuse me, in these games, they're just one game. You're going to play on the 22nd. You're not going to play again to the 29th. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you can throw that guy in the 22nd. He can come back on the 29th. Right. He can come back again in May in the quarterfinals. So it's going to be very different in this area, but yeah, Oakdale's got a chance to make a run as well.
Yeah, did get a chance to see Welsh earlier on than 1 seed, and a talented team similar to Oakdale. And I'm glad you brought that up, KP. John, on the other side of the coin, as tough as that 3-game series is, what's the player's mindset knowing it's one and done and we're 7 innings away from either heartbreak or hallelujah?
Yeah, the one and done mindset is a little different than the 3-game set. I would hope that it wouldn't be that much different. The teams that do have a 3-game set should treat it like a 1 game. But that 1-game deal is we're going to put everybody's feelings aside, and we just like the March Madness thing. We want to win in advance. So yes, when you've got that 6-7 day layoff before game second round, you definitely can empty the bench and not try to ride a pitcher longer than you have to. If he's struggling with control, the velocity drops. We're gonna bring in anybody that we think can get it done, and we'll just put band-aids on it when it's over to the next round.
One games are crazy. There's a reason why they don't play one games anymore in the higher classification. We mentioned Barb earlier. I'm pretty sure they were one of the big proponents of getting this to a three-game series, because it is a crapshoot, and I understand how, especially in baseball, one game might not be reflective of how good teams are. So, if you're a lower, meaning worse seed, if you're a double-digit seed in one of these classifications that only has one game, man, the pressure's not on you. The pressure's on that other team, because they're supposed to win. But if they get, like you mentioned earlier, you rattle off a couple hits and there's an error, next thing you know, you're trailing. That's how these things happen in these postseasons. So I think it's fun for these smaller schools, but I definitely see how the bigger schools, the 3-game series is better.
That may or may not have been,
and always just that frenetic feeling of that. One thing goes wrong, one starter gets a bad start, and
that may or may not have been named the Barb rule. That was the Barb rule when it was voted on, for sure.
Yeah. So moving to Division IV select, and again, this is some of those 1A private schools. I know, Roy, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see K. Luker over in the Ruston area. He's someone I got to see as a freshman, but he's a left-hander throwing in the 90s.
Yeah, the last time I saw Ruston was in the playoffs last year, and they had a heck of a series with Benton. But Ruston, no surprise that they've got somebody like that.
Here in baseball, that he's got, in a single-digit seed. Any overall thoughts about Division IV select from the panel?
I just want to go back and mention Plain Dealing for a second. They're the 22 seed on the other side, and Plain Dealing. I've had so much fun covering Plain Dealing athletics this year. They've got a couple hundred kids or whatever it is. They've got the longest losing streak in football. But I've been up there a bunch. Jerry Bird was his first year head coach this year. Then the girls basketball team made the longest trip possible in the state of Louisiana and won on the road in girls basketball. Plain Dealing for super small programs. And, there's not a lot of Division I coaches scouting these people, but they are having a lot of fun and no different than this Lions baseball team. They were so happy to make the postseason. We've talked a lot about these teams where it's like, if championship or bust, man, the Plain Dealing Lions are going to get on that bus and they're going to play Del Cambre, and they are going to have a lot of fun, and they're going to want to win the game, but they are so happy to be in the postseason. And with these smaller programs, this is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, Roy, I know you mentioned one of Plain Dealing's. They've had a couple players that have been making waves, and Jerry Bird's been such a great presence in North Louisiana athletics for a while. It's always fun to root for the Lions there, and they'll be there in the playoffs there in Division IV non-select. Right. Let's take a look at Class B and Class C. We'll wrap things up this evening. Class B, probably one of the more stacked playoff brackets as far as Central Louisiana teams go. I mean, I think most of the majority of the top 10 seeds are from around this area. Pelican, the defending champions, they've got a lot of talent. Gavin Holt there, Gage James. The 2 seed Glenmora, they've got a roster of pitchers between Gillespie and Holloway and Robbins. Grace Christian, the 3 seed, they've got Logan Markle, who's an absolute sledgehammer, coming out mid-80s with a tall lefty. And then, from there, the challenges just keep going. So Class B will be, a really good one. Roy, I know that Stanley is, they've typically produced some good baseball players, but anything stand out to you about Class B?
the third school in DeSoto Parish. They sort of get lost in the shadow behind Logansport and North DeSoto. But Stanley, heck of a program there in softball, as KP knows as well. But Logan Maroney, he's their guy. We talk about these one-game series. He's gonna take the mound for Stanley. And they play Quitman. Stanley's the 10 seed. 19-10, I believe, was their record. So Stanley, just another one of those teams that, these Class B teams, these Class B organizations or athletic programs are to watch, and watch out for the Panthers. I mean, but like you said, I love the fact that bracket has so much local flavor on this panel. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, John, Ash got to take on two of these playoff teams, Oak Hill and Hicks. I know Hicks, one of their pitchers coming in, throwing around the low 90s. So, you may think that just because it's a non-football school that nothing to worry about. But as we saw this year, Class B has some real talent.
Well, and that's the thing with the Hicks program, and you go back and look at the LHSAA history that Hicks has had. It's a program of winning, that they're used to winning. So when all you do is win like that, and they're like, well, you've got Pitkin next week, and then you've got Barb the week after. They're not scared. They are expecting to win. It's an atmosphere and an environment that is used to winning. So that when they do get down 2-3 runs after 2 innings, they've seen themselves come back enough that they're just not spooked, and they believe that they can get it done. So, and that's just what winning does for you. It gives the entire program confidence that they're going to win and that they're going to come back if they face an early deficit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and KP, I know that you were impressed with Hicks when they came to play Ash, and like John said, just one of double-digit state championships, and they could very well make a run here based on what we saw.
Absolutely. It was only a 5-2 game. Hicks played well. They put the ball in play. They got the big kid
looking
that's the
at
coach's son.
Class C. Yes, yeah, number 10.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game, like I said, and same thing with Oak Hill. Oak Hill came and showed up, played a 5A baseball team, lost 8-1, but those two teams are going to be competitive. There's no question about that.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up with Class C, the defending champs there, the Ebarb Rebels. They were able to win state there last year. We haven't seen too many of these Class C teams live and in person. Was able to see Plainview earlier in the year. But Roy, what stands out to you most about just Class C baseball in general, if there's not any teams that you've been able to follow up close and personal?
Well, these are teams that have 10 guys on the team, 9 guys on the team, and the minimum, and a lot of these, depending on what school you're at, you might have 6th graders playing. I mean, it's it's fun. These kids are playing it for fun, and yeah, they're playing for a state championship just like everybody else, but they're not getting the attention. So it's all about how much fun the sport is.
Yeah, and probably some of that attention comes from just you'll see some of these Class B and 1A teams that will play up a lot. That's where Class C teams may tend to stick with enrollment numbers like that. But John, I'm sure you agree with Roy that just the small school baseball is just as satisfying to watch once you get down to Sulphur.
Oh, definitely, and you have the occasional talent that rose through some of these smaller schools that makes for some entertaining baseball. The other thing you run into in the B and the C brackets, just not a lot of blowouts. They kind of, most of that stuff, they keep it close, which makes for exciting ball as well to watch and to officiate, like KP and I did in the past. So you always want to officiate a game that's good as long, and you want it to be played the right way. And small school athletics in general is usually done the right way. There's not a lot of hot dogging. There's a lot of do whatever we got to do to win, and that's you enjoy seeing that.
And the things about these teams, that they're not playing football, so this is football. Sometimes it's basketball is the football for the school. Sometimes it's baseball. Sometimes it's softball. But often, baseball's not getting lost in the crowd at these programs because they don't have football.
Right, and there'll be a lot of people at these games because they'll roll the streets up and everybody goes to support the local high school. So
That's right.
It's wonderful to see.
We went to Singer one year, Marshall. We went to Singer. I didn't even know where Singer, Louisiana was. And we went there to Singer, Louisiana, and they acted like us three umpires were in the MLB. They put us in a classroom. They had us pizza, and they had a kid that ended up going to UL. He threw about 96, and I was behind the plate. And when you take those first 7 or 8 warm-up pitches, you're like, I so hope this catcher can catch. And he threw a one-hitter, struck out 20 of 21 batters, and the other kid threw a one-hitter, struck out 19.
Yeah.
Singer won 1-0. And so those little schools, that's all they got is baseball, and they love it.
And that game lasts about 45 minutes. You love those.
Amen. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's true. Yep.
I always hear the legendary stories about Rusty Rugg on the mound, and the highest. We talk about Greg Prosell all the time. He played ball at E-Barb, so yeah, the legends can come.
Where'd you hear about Rusty Rugg at?
K104 always posts article about him.
Okay, yeah, because I grew up playing against Rusty.
Yeah,
he was in Downsville.
Yep. Yeah, my step grandfather is from Downsville too. So yeah.
Okay.
Marshall, these little schools, Oak Hill used to have Dobie Perkins, won 5 state championships. Used to sit in the dugout about his last 5 years. He couldn't see Roy at all. He'd hit the ball would hit the glove, and he'd go, "Hey, Blue, that sounds like a strike." And so these little schools, that's all they got, man. And sometimes they're as much fun as going to Ash or Barb.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had as much fun covering Class B this season as any classification during the regular season. So 10 brackets, a lot of baseball yet to be played, not a lot going on this weekend. But we were super thankful that we're able to go through as much of these brackets as we can and talk about as much of the baseball that we've seen in person as we can. We try to, get as much as we can, but hopefully we were able to cover as much as of this bracket as possible. Final thoughts, KP Miles, on 2026 postseason.
Man, I'm looking forward to it. I'm grateful that my friend Roy Lang, who I don't get to spend much time with or talk too much, but we're going to get on the golf course, me, you, and John at some point, and maybe we'll get Meredith. We get the gang back together. Thank you for joining us, and I'm just looking forward to next weekend to a 3-game series. I think this Ash team, I don't want to say deserves, but I think that they're due some positive in their lives. These kids are due something, and it could be magical. And to get the home series that we just knew we weren't going to get. We were going to be 9 seed going up there to Shreveport, Roy. And to get it, maybe that's a little bit of, I don't want to say karma, but it's whatever you want to call it. So looking forward to it. Me and John will be on the call next Friday and Saturday, and looking forward to that.
Listen, if baseball's hard enough, but if you're Captain Shreve going down there and there's something extra going against you, that's, if there's a higher power helping out Ash, that's a tough spot for Captain Shreve. And that's what I was alluding. The atmosphere down there is going to be unbelievable. And I know you guys will do a great job. The one thing I'm looking to is to see how North DeSoto does. The end of Luke Delafield's career, they made it to the state championship game in football. They just assumed they were going to win that game and did not. Can he finish his career with another state championship in baseball? I think that's the biggest story up here.
John Bell, final thoughts about the postseason.
Well, the good thing about North DeSoto is when he does leave, they're going to have plenty of money. They got that.
They do.
The shale money is rolling in North DeSoto, as they say.
It's a real deal. Yep.
Some of the things I'm looking forward to, these are experiences that I know it applies to me in my mid-50s. I can remember with great detail most of my high school baseball playoff games, how they ended. One of the tough things to watch, it's really tough to watch in football, but it'll happen in baseball as well. When a team does get knocked out and they come out of that dugout after the coach tells them everything, says all the right things and how he's proud of them and all that. And some of these big old brood baseball players come out and they look for their mama and they're giving their mama a hug and they know that they just played their last baseball game. And that is it's a sobering deal for a 17, 18-year-old kid to know I'm done. I'm a good player at Hicks or Live Oak or Ash or whatever, but not really playing at the next level. And this is it for me. So it's good to see them come together. And as far as Ash and what they've dealt with and what they have in front of them, there's probably there's a love for the game that they have found through all of this. And they want to win as bad as anybody wants to win for Colin. But I think they're also going to keep it in perspective as well as to, there's bigger things going on than this high school baseball thing. If for everything it's done for me and my family and the people that I played with and against. But I equate it sometimes to the people that go off in the military. They just have a bond that you're not going to have with a guy that you work with. When you do that, we're getting out of class and practicing every day. We play on Friday nights and Saturday afternoons and Tuesdays. And when all that comes to an end, it's a sobering reality of we're getting older and responsibility and jobs are coming quickly. So I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate you having me on.
The other thing about that, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because not only may these kids not ever play baseball again, but baseball is all they have for a lot of these. You look at some of these programs up here in Shreveport, they're not going. Some of these kids aren't going to college. They're certainly not going to play baseball. And through high school, baseball or football or whatever it is has kept them out of trouble. And that has been their thing. They identify themselves by athletics because that's what they have right now. And they realize that, oh my gosh, what do I have now? So it is, when you see those kids walk off, it is sobering when you see some of those kids, because that's their last hurrah.
Well, and the high school football coach that is playing for the state championship or trying to advance and comes up with the next 60 minutes for the next 60 years. I mean, that sounds cute, but it's scarily accurate how you will live with this the rest of your life. Yeah. So don't take it for granted. Yeah, KP and I had talked about this earlier in the year when I first started doing this, and I was out at the ballpark and seeing these guys run around in their bright white uniforms with the shiny cleats and all that. And I'm 55 and full of gray hair and thinking, man, I just one more time. Just give me one more at bat. Let's take infield one more time. Just, you want to be a kid playing the child's game one more time. Now, I do remember being 17, 18, playing it, thinking, I'm going to call so-and-so when the game's over and we'll go get ice cream or do whatever or something, and just kind of taking for granted that the good times, it's that whole thing of, I wish somebody would have told me when the good times were when I was in it. But sports is a huge part of my life and my family's life. And boy, do I miss it. And I just wish there was a way to convey that to some of these kids today that I got to get out and work and get on the oil rig and make some money. And man, all that's there. Just push it off as long as you can. So.
Yep. Great stuff.
Yeah. Well, like we said, a lighter weekend on the calendar as pretty much every bracket will get fully engaged next week, but we do have some good first round matchups. And we've kind of seen some of those teams. Natchitoches Central, they got a win at Benton late, and they, KP, we talked about, just barely got in the playoffs. Boyles gets a win on the last day of the season to get in the playoffs. So congrats to all those teams that were able to make runs like that. And we'll be following this postseason run all season long here on 446 Sports. Want to thank everyone who is hanging out with us watching tonight. You can catch this on demand after it concludes. And we certainly want to thank KP Miles, John Bell, and our special guest, Roy Lang, for spending time with us this evening to talk high school baseball. And guys, thank y'all so much for your time. And maybe we can do this in the subsequent rounds as we start to shrink these brackets down a little bit.
Appreciate you, Marshall.
Thanks for having me, guys. You guys do a great job. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks to all y'all, and thanks for everybody for watching this special bracket baseball release edition of the Pelican Sports Report right here on 446 Sports.